Folks, let's go to our number 9 team in the country, and that is the Washington Huskies. Quietly had a ridiculously good year. Okay, so Caleb Williams wins the Heisman, but who's the best quarterback in college football? A young man by the name of Michael Penix Jr. Folks, you don't remember, if that name sounds somewhat familiar to you and you're sitting there going, wait a minute, Michael Penix Jr. is over at Washington. I didn't think he was at Washington. You're right. You're probably remembering Michael Penix Jr. when he was over at Indiana. He was the quarterback at Indiana that made them take a huge leap. They went on a huge run over there. He wound up tearing his ACL the following year there, transfers over to Washington, finally gets healthy. He's on, I think he may be on year 6 in his college career fresh. Correct me on that one.
He's on the doctoral program, yeah.
Yeah. But the crazy thing with Penix, man, is he has got 2 ridiculous, and I mean, maybe we could even talk about 3.
I'm even leaning toward 3.
This could be this wide receiving room with Odunze, McMillan, and Polk. That could give Ohio State and Texas a run for the best wide receiver room in the country. I'm still going to lean Ohio State, slightly biased, I'll admit that. But I'm going to put a lot of respect on this team's name. Washington is a really, really good football team. And if someone's going to knock off Utah for Pac-12 champion, I think we're looking at this. We have another Pac-12 team rated a little higher. I'm a little higher, though, overall on the Washington Huskies. What say you, Fresh?
I mean, those 3 receivers, they're, amazing. You have 2,000-yard receivers there in Odunze and McMillan. They were 1-3 in the Pac-12 in yards receiving last year. But then you have Jalen Polk, just solid number 3, only had 694 yards and 6 touchdowns as the 3. That was in year 1 with Penix and Kellen DeBoer, the head coach, who just arrived from Fresno State. You're giving them now an entire offseason to really gel. They're all healthy, flowing, and adapting and building off what they did. This could be a very lethal team. They were already the second best offense in terms of total yards per game in the nation last year. Best passing attack in the nation, averaging 370 yards, base 369.8, will round up, give you 370. And 7th in the nation in points a game at 39.7. And now they have a year to get even better. Look, I don't care what you say, outside of Utah, defense in the Pac-12 is optional. That's part of the reason why these teams light up the scoreboard, because there's not anyone stopping anybody. So I could even see them scoring 45 points a game and making it look easy. Penix Jr.'s in line for a heck of a season. But just like Tennessee, Washington's the same kind of thing. Explosive offense, quarterback, machine, receivers everywhere. Can you play some defense? If you can play some defense, you can maybe beat Oregon, which you already did in a lucky way when Bo Nix got hurt. You'd be able to compete with team in USC, maybe UCLA. Oregon State's good. There's a team in Colorado has some entertainment around them, and then Utah is always competitive and the 2-time defending champion. You start playing some defense at Washington, then you're not just being talked as a Pac-12 contender. You're talked as a potential playoff team and a national contender. The only Pac-12 team to compete in the college football playoff ever is Washington back in 2016. That team was relied heavily on defense. This team is heavily on offense, but can they find a way to play some defense and maybe make a chance to win the Pac-12, put up a big bunch of numbers? They have an opportunity, but this comes down to, are they mature enough to handle the expectation? Nobody thought anything on them last year. Nobody gave them a blink of an eye until they beat the trash out of Michigan State. And we were like, well, Michigan State's supposed to be really good after the year before. How does Washington come in and slaughter them? And then as the year got forward, we're like, you know what? That wasn't a fluke. Washington's really legit. But yeah, Michigan State stunk, but Washington truly legit. And you found out the proof in the pudding there. Now you have the expectations of, we expect you to be a 10-win, 11-win team competing for a Pac-12 title or a playoff spot. Where are you going to be able to hold up your end of the bargain? That's where this comes down to. Penix, when you were at Indiana in 2020, nobody really expected much, and you guys came out there and you had a heck of a season. You almost beat Ohio State in the shoe, and then unfortunately you got hurt. You didn't have expectations that year. You shocked everybody. Kind of fell, unfortunately the injury knocked you guys down a little bit after that. But here we are back again. Expectations from you as a quarterback, but now expectations as Washington as a team to show up. I'm interested to see what they do. They do have a stud on defense. Braylon Trice, 10 sacks last year. but they do have to replace linebacker Jeremiah Martin, who had 8.5. You're losing a lot of production there from the linebacker spot. Can somebody else show up and help out Trice? He's the anchor of that defensive line. Can you build guys around him? Can some guys in the secondary show up? You're going to need them when you're going against the prime of teams in that league and who's throwing the football around. This is interesting. If DeBoer can get this team to play at a high level and be consistent and keep them grounded and focused, and they can somehow keep winning and building off of it, could he even get a bigger job? Could he turn Washington to a legit, consistent power instead of a 1 or 2 years up and then a couple years down? Could he actually own the Pac-12? Because you know what? Lincoln Riley's shown that in big games, Lincoln Riley doesn't really, him and his squads don't show up. So that gives you a blink of hope that you may be able to steal the Pac-12. They're fancy at USC. Everyone expects them to be glorious. Could your team show up and make wins? This is an intriguing spot for Washington. I don't really recall a time where this team has had expectations this high. Even when they went to the playoff, I don't recall them having expectations this high as being a preseason top 10 team, 9th overall. They do have a tough schedule. Open up Boise State. You get travel to East Lansing, the other end of that, home and home. You get Oregon and Utah at home, and you travel to USC and Oregon State. November 4th through the 18th. Now, you can make it through October, but everyone, the phrase is be remembered in November. The 4th through the 18th, you got at USC, Utah, at Oregon State. That will test the measure of this football team. Are you good enough down the stretch and the weather gets bad? Will the passing attack still survive? Or can the defense show up and win an ugly, messy football game? That's the real big question. We won't know that for a few months now, but you have to put yourself in the position of actually those games really matter. If you stink it up early on, those November games don't matter. If you build yourself up to that point and you consistently get better as the year goes on, those games now are increased significantly, and you have a chance of really making a showcase win or 2 or 3 and putting yourself in the national spotlight. I think the ceiling for this team is 11-1. They have a chance of maybe putting up a big show, carrying them through. But the floor, just like Tennessee, I think 9-3. Could the offense just be a little too much and the defense not be there to help them and support them? That might be the downfall. 11-1, 9-3, somewhere in the mix, but this team will be in the conversation come November.
Ooh, fresh. Ooh, sign me up for October 14th. I can't wait. Oregon traveling to Washington. Oregon's going to be upset-minded on that one. Both have the week before off. That game's going to be a dogfight right there. But you're right. The real season for Washington is going to show up in November. You can lose to Oregon and be okay. If you wind up, because USC is going to be pretty high going into that game. They'll still be pretty highly ranked, I have a feeling. Utah, we think Utah is one of the better run programs in the entire country. And then everyone knows how difficult it is to go up to Corvallis and beat the Beavers in their own area. That 3-game stretch is going to be a nightmare for the Washington Huskies. If they can do it, this is going to be a remarkable story. I'm looking at them, and I could easily see at the end of this season us talking about the Washington Huskies in the playoffs. I also could see them being a little bit pissed off from last year. Fresh, they went to the Alamo Bowl at 11-2 or 10-2, and with this amazing season that they had, they only lost, the 2 games they lost were by 15 total points. And I know they were matched up with Texas, but I feel like if I was a Washington player, if I'm the coaching staff, I would say, we deserve more. We deserve more than the Alamo Bowl. We deserve a better invite than this right here. We deserve to be playing on New Year's Day. I don't care if it's the Capital One Bowl, but we deserve to be playing after January 1st. I think that the coaching staff could have this team really fired up. Now, the thing that scares me is that they're an injury away from an 8-4 season. And I have 8-4 as their floor, because if something happens to Penix, this season is over. I don't think that they're going to get the electric type of play from the backups behind them, even with these wide receivers that they have, even with Trice coming back, his 9 sacks, getting after the quarterback there. They were 3rd in the Pac-12 in sacks last year with 35. This team can get pressure on the quarterback. That's what gave Bo Nix a boatload of trouble. You look at the end of that Oregon game, go back and watch the late 3rd quarter, early 4th quarter, over there, we saw what this this Washington pass rush was able to do to Oregon. And if they're able to do that consistently, this is a team that could run the table. I have them that their ceiling is 12-0. I have their ceiling as an undefeated season because on paper, they are good enough to beat every single team on their schedule. Now, is that going to happen? Probably not. Are they probably going to suffer a loss along the way? I think so. I think going to USC in November, early November, I think that's a really, really tough game. I probably would, if I had to put some money on that game, I'd probably go USC in that game. But on paper, Washington has the talent to compete with anyone on their schedule. This is a really good Washington team. And folks, if you have never watched Husky football, you're not like big fan of Pac-12 After Dark, you need to go out of your way to watch the Washington Huskies this year. This is a really, really good football team and probably a really, kind of fun pick. If you want to make a pick for your Final Four in the playoff, Washington would be a great pick out of the Pac-12 if you don't want to go with the traditional Utah or USC. So I like this Washington team, and I'm really excited to hear the final chapter of Penix Jr.'s story. You see what he's done, what he's had to go through. It's going to be a remarkable story when it's all done, and we kind of close the book on that, and he goes on to the next level. But yeah, I'm excited for Washington, man.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But I love the way you took that point of Penix Jr.'s story, because I think the one thing we look at sports in general where you deal with adversity, but you have to rally. You pick yourself up off the mat. You get yourself revived, and you fight back, and you overcome it. That's where the team mentality comes with. That's also individuals, and that's be really great to see him come from a point where he thought probably his career was over to where he's at now and even beyond. It's something really special.